Katya Turner is an intuitive author and coach. She grew up in post-Cold War Soviet Union Ukraine as a very sensitive, gifted indigo, and due to a harsh, unawakened environment, she had learned to fear and suppress herself and her wonderful spiritual gifts. Newly awakened, she helps others with her intuitive abilities, writes a series of books about her life as an indigo and her ascension process, and shares her experiences and insight about ascension in her written and video blog. It is her greatest hope and vision to lend you helping and compassionate hand in this unnerving process. Be your friend through all the awesome stuff and not so much that ascension can bring. Tell your own story and share her experiences for you to know that you are not alone and what you are going through is very normal and beautiful. You can find Katya and listen to her wonderful talks on our YouTube channel, Katya at IndigoDiaries.com. On a side note, Katya also had the privilege of working with the late Delores, a legendary soul who needs no introduction by any means. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the cosmos, the universe, space, and the galaxy. I'm Rockin' Larry Lockin with Pleiadian Express Productions. And it's a beautiful, rainy day here on the Oregon coast, here at the Light Grid Pleiadian Express studio. And I'd like to welcome my guest this time, Katya Turner. Katya, how are you doing tonight, where you're at, I guess?
I'm doing wonderful. It is a very hot day here in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and finally it is cooling down. It is beautiful, sun is setting, and I'm ready to talk.
What a wonderful description. Well, me too. My co-host, one of them I'm not sure will be making it, and the other one will be a little bit late, Bridget Rouse. She's stuck in traffic, I guess, somewhere in the Boston metro area, trying to get home. But Katya, I wanted you to start off by talking a little bit about your upbringing and what that was like growing up in that environment after, in that post-Cold War era over in that part of the world.
Oh, it was a little different. Even though I grew up, and for me it should have been normal, right? As I was a child born into the environment and into the family, you would think that I would grow up thinking that it was normal. Yet for some reason, even whenever I was a child, I kind of looked at my environment with a little bit of a wild eye because I could never relate to what was going on around me. It was obviously very harsh on all spiritual things. Nobody was talking about dimensions. Nobody was talking about meditation. Everything was about survival and trying to make it through this transition from USSR to being separate countries now. And yeah, my parents were very blissfully unaware of the kind of kid they had, and ever since a very young age I kept having these visions, and I would hear things and smell things, and I would feel the time speed up and slow down, like I felt the time as if it was like a chewing gum. And then at some points I would feel myself be like this huge energy, and at some points I would feel myself as being this tiny speck of piece of a thing compared to everything else around me. And then I would see these textures, and yeah, and I never talked about this to anybody because ever since I was a child, I looked at everybody around me and I thought to myself that, you know what, people, if I would tell you all the wisdom I hold and all of what I really think about what's going on, I feel like your world will collapse.
Well,
and
yeah,
that's why I didn't.
Yeah, you probably might have been locked up too. So what I'm getting is that growing up over there, I mean, all of this stuff came from within for you, right? Because there's certainly not really many ways that you could have read about meditation.
Oh, not at all, yeah.
Yeah, so this all came from within, right? And you had to hold that stuff, not only just in a world like here in America back then where people weren't really talking about this stuff, but it was completely shut down over there. So you were coming from within. And I was just going through, I probably listened to all of your YouTube videos 3 or 4 times over, and I just find it amazingly resonating. I know that word resonating can sound cliche to some people, but when you really resonate with something you do, and your stories are amazing. So, okay, fast forward, right? So you're 19 years old, you're getting out of the Ukraine. Then, take it a little bit from there. Then what started to happen for you at that point?
So when I was 19 years old, I done shoved everything very deep inside of me because all my life I thought that I was broken, that all of these things, like I remember kept hearing from my parents, well, you're too sensitive, it's going to be real hard in life for you. So I shoved it deep inside and figured out how to block everything pretty much. And I left to the United States. I got here, I worked for a little bit, and then I decided I wanted to go back to college. I went to college for graphic design, which was one of my passions and hobbies, and I figured I was really good at it, so why not make it a career? I was always adamantly against doing something that I don't enjoy, so I went for exactly what I loved. And then in college, I met my husband. And back at that time, I remember also right before I met my husband, I was in this like year-long relationship that really got under my skin. I mean, it was really bad for me. The guy was really negative, and it was really, really a downer in my life. And I remember after that, I was like, you know what? I'm done with the relationship. I'm done with everything. I'm finally happy by myself on my own. I am building this business. I'm being so successful at this thing. I love it. That point was the point when I thought I finally had it figured out. That point was when I met my husband, whom I totally didn't want to date, but somehow it still happened, and Ascension kicked in right then. I mean, not even a month passed of us being together, and a crazy things started happening that like shook my whole life.
Yeah, it really is about timing. I mean, like per se, do you think it would have worked out as well with your husband, say if you would have met him like right after your last relationship, before you know, got a few things figured out, and before it's funny how it happens when we're finally happy being alone, you know what I mean? You're finally starting to love yourself and you're content and you're in that mode, and then that energy that draws a person of similar thoughts and beliefs to you when you get into that mode. And I just think it's incredible. And yeah, I mean, everything for a reason. And I'm sure your last relationship, I mean, I was in one too, and I don't think they probably would have understood as much what you were going through as your, you know, as your husband, it sounds like.
Of course. And I mean, with a husband, he was an activator for me. So with no one else would it have been the same. And, you know, years down the line now, I know why everything happened the way it did. And yeah, it's all perfect divine plan and divine timing. And no matter how hard it was at some points, we definitely got through it together like chance.
Yeah, exactly. And it had to be in at the right time too. I'd like to ask you a little bit about, you know, some of the things that I've heard that you talk about in your videos, which I'm all over the board here because I listen to them so much, they're kind of all rambling together for me, yet resonating. You know, the jumping
Yeah.
timeline, the new Earth intuitivity, your ascension story. You know, what do you feel right now through your guys? What would you like to start off with first? 'Cause I'd like you to touch on a little bit of both those things, at least if you could, and then, you know, as well as whatever we come up with from there.
Definitely. Well, first, I think I want to touch on, you know, what happened right after I met my husband, because what happened is part of the reason why I am doing this. And what happened was everything kind of went all kinds of directions, but nothing that I was planning on. First of all, we got pregnant the same month that we met, and it was absolutely terrifying for both of us. We ended up having an abortion, and that was a terrifying experience, but somehow it drew us closer together. And then all of my physical symptoms of ascension kicked in, and it was 2012, and I remember the whole 2012 and 2013 I spent in these completely bizarre physical sensations of vertigo and flying and feeling like I am going to have a heart attack right next moment, or feeling like I'm going to have a stroke, and then feeling these memory lapses and these heat waves and little brain surgery, what I call them, this sensation that somebody's poking a needle in the specific part of your brain. And I was terrified. I was terrified to the point that some nights I was going to bed and I wasn't sure if I was going to wake up the next morning. I was terrified. I had no idea what was going on with me. All my life I spent having a plan and being certain at, what up. And all of a sudden, I feel like my life was suspended in the air. Like I had absolutely no control over what was going on with my body, what was going on with my thoughts. It was like, wow, I spent 2 years pretty much in constant fear. Yeah.
Well, you know what? Okay, yeah, and a lot of people, there is, as you've met, we were talking in the pre-show, have gone through these, and I'm glad you touched on your ascension symptoms because it's important for people to know that, a lot of us have had those. Now, my question is about that. Did you ever, in the time when you were going through that, did you think about visiting a doctor, and then did you maybe have those thoughts of, geez, I mean, they're not going to understand this. I mean, they barely understand anything mainstream that you would come to them with. I mean, it's one of them things where so many people are having these. And, I mean, the medical profession, I think someday, I don't know if they'll ever wake up to this, but what were your thoughts on, or did you ever even consider that option of going in and seeing a doctor when
I
you were
actually
having?
did. I
Okay.
went to ER once because I had this vertigo over and over again. And at that point, I was like, I don't know, maybe I have a brain tumor. Like all kinds of thoughts were going through my mind because I had, like, this has never happened to me before. So yeah, we went to ER and they did all kinds of tests on me, and that was the point of me giving up on on the medical profession in a way, because
It took
they were like,
one time.
everything's fine, your heart is fine. While they were doing the tests on me, I felt my heart was about to jump out. No, they're like, everything is fine, everything is perfect. So at that point it was like, give it to God, and that's it. And I hope I will wake up the next day, pretty much. All the way up until in 2013, I think, it started, and we met Delores Cannon, and then we started working together, and we started meeting all the crowd associated with her work, and finally I started waking up to what is going on with me. And it was huge. It was a huge turning point and such a big relief knowing that, I'm not crazy. Knowing that if you think of number two and it has a taste, a texture, and a feeling to it, and a color to it, that actually people, there are other people who think and feel their world like that. Beautiful. It was a beautiful moment in my life.
Yeah, totally. And I think that for all of us that have never met her, we certainly know how important Dolores was in our awakening. And those of us that have had, the privilege of listening to her time and time again, and you really, she's one of them ladies when you're awakening, you can't get enough of hearing her information. What was it? Can you just quickly maybe share some of your thoughts on what it was like to be around her and interact with her, and what she was like in person?
Oh, it was absolutely amazing. Absolutely. And I think what surprised me about her the most was how normal and down to earth she was. It was nothing like talking to a huge celebrity or anything. It was like talking to a normal person. And beautiful. The whole company and all of the events that they organized, everything, it felt like a family. Working with them felt like working with a family. So yeah, I enjoyed it greatly, and still look back at that time, so much gratitude for the information that her books brought me, for the interaction with her, and with all the people that she has, formed that community around herself. It's beautiful and life changing for me, and I'm sure for thousands and thousands of people.
Oh, definitely. And on a side note about her, what I love is that, and I've heard her say this so many times, she did not set out on this mission. She was just a hypnotherapist trying to help people with weight loss and smoking. But over the years, time and time again, in regression, she kept hearing the same story over and over and over again. And eventually, she's like, okay, well, eventually, I had to realize there's something to all of this. But that aside, what this new Earth that's being created intuitively. Can you explain a little bit and talk a little bit about that, if you would?
Yes, this is an amazing concept. I'm watching this happen in every session, and I am forever amazed at this. Not only that, I am myself experiencing this. So what's going on in sessions is a lot of star seeds are coming to me, who are just about to step into their mission. And every time I connect to their higher selves and higher aspects, and they're showing me the same picture, and they're telling me the same things, that what you're going to do that is going to become your mission is not going to come from your brain. It is not going to be anything that you figure out or think up, but you're going to come to some mental conclusion. It is something that you feel in your stomach, that you have always felt this deep alignment with, but you never kind of allowed yourself to go there because it's just too out there, or it's too weird for you, or it's too weird for the environment. And the picture that they're showing me along with it is this person, and I see this from behind, is a person in like a lab coat, kind of like a professor of physics who is mixing something, different liquids of different colors, and he's actually doing it with this light word that is coming out of his stomach. That is the energy that is creating this new project. The brain, which I see as this like grayish bluish energy, stays put. It stays put in the head. And not saying that, you know, you're not going to use your mind and your intellectual ability whatsoever. Of course you are. And the connections are going to fire with everything that you have learned and experienced so far. But the idea that is going to kickstart the new system that you're here to bring lies in your intuition. It lies in your stomach. Physically, that is where you feel it. It is beautiful to watch this happen. For every single starseed who's coming, it is exactly the same. For me, kind of too, because I didn't start doing these intuitive sessions, which are just the beginning to this big grand journey that they have planned for me. But I didn't start doing them because I sat down one day and decided, you know, this would be a great business. Or, I mean, I didn't even know how to do this. All they told me was clarity comes in the process. That's it. Show up and try to help people. So all I had really was my intuition. That's it. And there was that mad idea. The mad idea was that, what if everything that I have experienced as a child and as a growing adult, everything that is coming to me anyway about people, like that empathic feeling that you get, what if that's it? What if that's actually true? And that mad idea turned out to be true, and that's why I'm sitting here today. Because all of those mad ideas that come in the videos later on that resonate with people so much, that's where it's coming from. It's coming from, you know, in the stomach.
Well, it's like we talked about in the pre-show when you did those 4 videos that one day. Don't you think that was just coming completely from the heart-centered stomach? I mean, you just sat down and you just did those. You know what I mean? It was just like it was through consciousness, and I think that's just amazing.
Absolutely. And I never plan out. I try. I really try. I sit down before I'm going to do the video, and I like open a notebook, and I'm starting to write down something, and it's like, nope, I maybe write down one word, and I know that it's just not going to go that way. And then I sit down and I trust. And, you know, and if it comes a little convoluted, or what my mind perceives as convoluted or as unclear, you know, then so be it. And honestly, I don't ever re-listen to them. I just share them on the spot, and I trust that whatever was going to come through, it did. And then if it's meant to be shared, it's going to be shared. And if not, they show me every single time that it's not meant. It's either going to be some technical difficulty or something otherwise. So I just trust.
Exactly. Well, you know, like Delores said, it's a convoluted universe. But yeah, exactly. And we were also talking a little bit about how, right, you know, okay, but first you get into those if you try to plan it, right? It becomes, it really just becomes this cluster, and it really, you get nowhere with it. I know what you mean if you try to plan it out. It's like you're almost defeating your purpose. But you were talking about how, you know, you might decide to do something one day, and maybe your guides think, okay, well, no, we're gonna push it off till another day, and then, you know, innate possibilities change, so timelines change, so I mean, it may be that you don't do it even on that day, but then sometimes maybe you're not prepared to do it, and your guides just push you in that direction, you know.
Yes, exactly. It's all about feeling the energy that's coming for you in the moment and kind of trusting, trusting what energy is supporting what action. And so what I do is I keep this kind of like idea board going, which is all over the place. Some of it is in notes somewhere on my desk. Some of them are in notes on my phone. But I always write the ideas down because I know that at some point the energy comes and it fills those ideas to be something physical. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't. Then it was never meant to be. But those 4 videos that I just got done releasing, they were in my notes for probably 2 weeks, and I let half of them go. But then that one day when I sat down, I couldn't get up until I got it out of me. And they kind of, right there, like I joked before the show, that my guides have my editorial calendar in my head, because they really laid it out for me when they want me to release these videos. And it was so funny because I would think that they would go right after the other, and no, I saw there was 1 day gap, and I wondered like why. But again, I let it go. I'm not gonna fight them. Whatever. If they want me to release it on Friday, then I will. And then I had this beautiful, slightly hard, but beautiful meditation and meeting my light body and stuff, and they made it a point that they wanted me to share that experience. And of course that came on Thursday in that little gap that I wondered about. So yeah, there's definitely divine plan and divine timing about every single thing that we do. And I feel like the best way we can work with this is just trust what's coming and let it through. Let this energy work through you. That I think has been the key to my success.
Well, yeah, and our guides really do have a great sense of humor. It's really amazing. And what I was going to also ask you about the intuitive thing, the more that we learn to trust our gut and really just go on instinct, do you think that it can get to a point where, okay, you hear about these people that, okay, maybe they didn't go somewhere, or they waited 5 minutes, or this or that, and they avoided a wreck, or maybe they got a premonition to not do this or that and avoided a really bad situation. And then people may ask, okay, well, okay, does that work all the time, or does it not work all the time? I think that you think that the signs are always there to help us avoid situations, just that we need to focus on learning to work on trusting our gut and maybe, focus that intention on it. It's kind of like like a very, very initial form of telepathy. Do you think that the signs are always there for you if you are in tune with them and listen?
Yes, as far as the signs, I definitely think that the universe is talking to you at all times. And everywhere is everywhere. In all the numbers that you see around yourselves, all the different letter combinations, if you just feel into your intuition as far as what the message is. But then as far as like avoiding wrecks and stuff like that, I really truly believe that if you have avoided it, then you were meant to not have it. And if you're meant to have it, if it's meant to happen as a message for you, uh, then it will. Or as a life turning point, then it will.
Right, the number combinations around us, aren't they fascinating? The letter combinations, and I think far too often some of us will get stuck in that mode when we're going through that of trying to overanalyze it. Okay, well, what does this mean? What does that mean? And we get completely into our brain part. Well, what does and it just going down that rabbit hole is just not very productive. So I love what you said about just absorbing it and taking it in. Right? I mean, would you say that that's good advice to not sit there and dwell on it on your brain?
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like you might have gone down that road a time or so,
Of course. I've been down that road so many times. Whenever I would see all of these 111s and 333 and 555, and it's like, what does it mean? There's a beautiful piece in How I Met Your Mother. I don't know if you watched this, whenever Barney's in a relationship with Quinn and he walks out every night to have his like 9 o'clock fart or something, and there's this guy who's watching him across the road, and he sees this guy come out every night, and it's just driving him crazy. Like, what does this mean? Is he sending me a message? It's kind of that situation, So obsessing about it does really nothing. If you want to know what it means, the coolest way to do is probably to Google angel numbers, and that's it. And let it go. And if it resonates, it resonates. And if it doesn't resonate, let it go.
That's a perfect example of how when you just sit there and try to figure it out with your brain, what does that mean? It gets you completely, sometimes you couldn't be further off base with what it means, when you do those sort of things. And you mentioned the angel numbers. I love that. In fact, there's a website that I go to, and I can't think of the name offhand, but it tells what these combination numbers mean. And like you, I see all the 333, 111, 444, but I have 23 that's really in my life everywhere, and with a number behind it. Sometimes a lot of them is 123, but every number behind it. So, there are places that you can go that are reliable, and if it resonates with you, fine. If it don't, fine.
Exactly. I believe in the power of resonance, because a lot of the times I'll go to one website and a certain message will resonate from there, but then the next time I will look up, let's say, what 444 means, and I will go there, and what they have to say doesn't really resonate, but then I go a link down, and boom, I got exactly the message. So everything in this world, I feel like it's all about, take what resonates and leave the rest.
On
That's
a
how
side
you.
note, Sorry, on a side note, real quick, our producer Sid typed in that the website I was talking about is Sacred Scribes angelnumbers.blogspot. Sacred Scribes angelnumbers.blogspot. So if anybody's interested in that. But Katya, I also really got fascinated today by something I heard from you. It was the last video I do believe that you made, and we were talking a little bit about that back and forth about the jumping the timeline.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'd like for you to kind of go down that path if you would with us.
Jumping the timelines has been just a subject that I even paid attention to a couple of weeks ago, because I feel like we have been, or at least I have been, in this breather portion between the waves of cleansing. And so the energy felt pretty high and pretty steady. And then all of a sudden, like one day I would wake up and I would really feel like I'm in a denser energy, but at the same time nothing is coming up for cleanse. So I was like, what is this? And I feel like I still have some work to do in that energy space. And then the next day I would wake up completely different energy, and I see the events of the day kind of going sideways, going in a different direction, not like yesterday's energy would have them lay down. And that just got me thinking, like, are we jumping timelines? And if we are, why? What is going on? And what to do, right? And so that's when and every morning I wake up and I receive these emails from Daniel Scranton with his channeled messages. And right now he's channeling Pleiadian High Council of Seven.
Yes.
And so I read one of those, and it had something to do with setting an intention for your day. It said, what if you had this experiment where you wake up and for just 5 minutes you find the frequency of the day that you want to experience. Find the frequency for your intention. Find what you want to experience, sit with it for a little bit, and go on about your day and just see what happens. And I was like, totally. Well, I couldn't sit down and meditate because I wake up pretty much with my baby all the time, but that doesn't mean that I can't tune in into what I want. So let's say one day I wake up, and as my baby is like starting to play, I come in my like inner space for a second and think, okay, today I want to experience abundance and flow. Let's say that. So I want it to flow easy, and I find that space within myself. I imagine, I visualize those things that make me feel abundant and make me feel the flow, find that energy, and kind of try to ground, to try to sit with it for a little bit. And funny enough, I started noticing that that is exactly what's happening. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not getting any sort of hard circumstances during my day. It doesn't mean that everything goes my way, because it does not. But how you flow around those things and how you're able to flow around the things that are not going your way, that is a beautiful thing. So I tuned into that energy of the flow, and all of a sudden I am able to flow so much easier. And then I see the events are flowing exactly with that energy that I set the intention for. So that was kind of like my theory of what I shared in that video, is that what if uh, this whole timeline jumping business is about us being called forth to create our reality really consciously, every day, moment by moment. I've seen myself change timelines during the day because I just let go of the control of my energy, so to speak. I just let it go wherever. That's when I see the timeline is starting to shift. And I'm like, nope, right back into my intention. And here it goes, right back into the frequency that I am willing to experience. So I feel like here the question is, what do you like to create? What do you want to experience? And tune into that. And that is the timeline that you're going to stay in, at least
Yeah,
throughout the day.
exactly. Yeah, and Daniel Grant and I, I really love reading his stuff on Facebook, especially the Pleiadian Council of Seven. Very, very good information, and I would encourage people out there to check him out. So you know what you said there really struck something with me. You're talking about focusing your intention at the beginning of the day, but would you say that part of the key to that is too is okay, like you said, things may not. That doesn't mean everything's going to go exactly the way you want it to. Is that, would you say that, okay, so you get in a situation through that day, it's really about how you adjust to that situation you get yourself into and thinking it through from your heart center every situation you're in. You know what I mean? You may get something come at you like, you're like, God, I didn't ask for this. But
Exactly, yeah.
maybe in a way you did, and you get something that you've got to work through. Would you say that it's also about, through the rest of your day too, you're going to have to kind of adjust and be in tune with those situations and adjust accordingly?
Of course. And sometimes during the day, you might want to fine tune your intention, because you might find yourself in a situation where, okay, so in the morning I wanted to experience the flow, and now I want to experience, let's say, clarity. Like I feel like my mind is all over the place and I want to do this video and I want to experience clarity, or I just want to experience grounding or something. And finding the frequency. And I feel like the frequency that you are aligning with, which is normally going to be a higher one, is going to help you navigate those situations. So if you have aligned yourself to the frequency of the flow in the beginning of your day, and then you encounter everything not going according to the theoretical plan of the day that you thought you had, or let's say me as a mom, this is a perfect example, and so many moms out there will relate, that with the little kids, so many times things are not going as planned. Let's say you want to go somewhere to a park, and okay, so you have to feed the kid, clothe the kid, and and get him or her out the door and in the car. But just the feeding part, you can mess up half of your living room with food, and then the clothes that you just put on your kid, they go dirty again. So here are all choice points, right? You can either go and freak out about it, and you can go in resistance, and why is this going like this, and all I want is good things to happen and all of these bad happening to me. Or whenever you are tuned into that frequency of the flow, you can just be like, well, all right. And you look at it without any sort of resistance. Again, you look at it like, okay, this happened, so I'm gonna change her and try to go again. And if I don't go, then I don't go. I can find something else to do. So when you're in that higher frequency, it's a little bit easier to even find the thoughts to replace the bad ones with, or they just kind of come naturally. At least that's what I've found, to happen with myself.
Did you ever have trouble with like letting that go? Like, I mean, I know the situation you're talking about, right? And then, it throws you for a loop. You've got to clean up the mess. You've got to clean up the clothes. And then after you do all that, maybe you come to the realization, okay, hey, today's just not the day. But then did you ever find yourself like obsessing a little bit? Like I do this, like, I got to get it done though. I got to
Of
get it done.
course.
I need to get
Yes.
it done. And it's just like you rack your brain. And it's like you almost shut down a little bit until the time is right. And then the time might be right once you got completely content with the fact that it ain't going to happen today. I mean, it could be on the spur of the moment all of a sudden, hey, the time is right.
Yes, yes. Oh, I have found myself resisting this so many times. And I still find myself doing this sometimes. Sometimes even a lot worse than I would think I would do at this point. But that's what the mastery, I feel like, is about, is coming to these situations over and over again. And what I find is the more these things happen, and the more I'm starting to be conscious about, okay, what my response is, and how I can pretty much substitute my thoughts. from negative to positive and switch my vibration real quick in the moment, that's mastery right there.
That right there is mastery, girl. That is good. That really is good. And something I wanted to ask you, what you were talking about earlier. Do you think that part of this too is like what we're going within? Do you think that we're kind of, instead of like having this bloody revolution to change the earth, do you think that we're just kind of walking away from this paradigm, like slowly, with our new thoughts on how to look at the world and how to treat people? Do you think that instead of like a revolution like that, it's kind of a consciousness revolution, and we're kind of just slowly but more steadily walking away from that old paradigm of the way things are done on a 3D dense earth?
I kind of see it as even a third thing. Like, I don't necessarily see this as a revolution, and maybe because I am not in much of those surroundings, like I don't read much of the news and those processes going on. I don't really think that we are walking away from something old, because that entails to me energetically that we are consciously escaping, so to speak. Like, okay, we want to leave this behind. What I see going on is we are consciously creating the new, and the old is just kind of falling away. But the new is coming in so strong and so undeniable for people who came here to create it, that the old is just going to fade. And the same with the revolution. It just kind of comes naturally with all the new, but it's a beautiful thing.
No, I totally agree with that. Wow, that's fascinating. So basically, it's not a matter of we should, okay, the old is breaking down, but do you think we should also like not forget the old? Do you think we should appreciate the old for teaching us that lesson to help us get to where we were and have that shift in consciousness? I don't know if that makes any sense, that question. But
That makes so much sense. So much. In fact, it makes sense on such a deep level with me, because I have been pondering about that idea for so long. And part of that is because it has to do with my relationship with my parents. And that's like a perfect example right here on a physical, actual level. So do I just look at my relationship with my parents up until this point, and do I be bitter about how they have taught me all the bad things, all the wrong things that brought me to this super painful process of clearing it and unlearning to block myself, pretty much? Very, very hard process.
yeah,
Or
there, yeah, go ahead.
or do I look behind and am thankful for everything they have showed me that needs attention, for everything that they showed me is not cool in the world, not just with our unit, but that's going on everywhere, because that was the key into the mission. That was the key into my work happening right now. So I feel like we should be thankful.
Would you say that getting in that state too, once you come to that feeling of being thankful, would you say that that would help somebody's relationship, like maybe in a similar circumstance with their parents? And, because a lot of people are afraid still to let their families know how they feel and what they think and, their thought process. Do you think that, I don't know, in your particular situation, do you think that helps that relationship slowly? I mean, because I don't know how your parents feel about like what you think, but it could range from anywhere from, oh, it's cool, to completely shunning a person. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying, and everybody's situation is different, and it's not even necessarily about letting everybody know how you actually feel, because for them it might not do really any good, especially if they are the ones who chose to remain on the descending side of things. So what it is about mostly, I feel like it is your inner space. So the inner space of a star seed, the consciousness of the star seed, it is your perspective, trying to find higher perspective, trying to find a perspective that is filled with higher vibration. And I feel like it also comes naturally with with this ascension process. So don't sit there and be obsessed about it and try to find it and trying to find it when all you really feel is resistance and a lot of anger, because you have to work through a lot of things before that, that higher perspective can ever come. So just let the natural divine flow of this energy sweep all of the old away and then bring you those higher perspectives.
No, that's a good point, because, and I've told people this before, the mistake I made early on in my awakening, right, is I would try to force this down my family's throat. Oh, did you see this in the sky? Did you feel this? Can't you feel that? Can't you see this coming on? And it really just made me look like a fool. And so what I had to realize the hard way, Katya, is that all you can do is kind of be there as a light guide, kind of just if they're there and they have a question, answer the question for them, show them love from either a distance or up close. But let kind of your intuition flow, let yourself just kind of radiate that energy towards them, and don't try to force anything on anybody, because all you're doing is really you're messing with their spiritual path, and really by obsessing on it, you're messing with your own.
Yes, exactly. And plus, they might have chosen a completely different way of learning their lessons, or learning the same lessons that you have already learned. So it's the same thing that, when we have our YouTube channels, when we talk about all of these things we believe, we don't necessarily force them onto people as if it's a religion. It's like, well, if you resonate, come. If you don't, then don't. The same with them. It's.
No, I totally agree, and that's one thing I want to say too, is this is not about a religion. This is not about a cult. In fact, my Pleiadian guys tell me, I mean, they're totally anti-religion. They don't believe in earth religions and cults. This is a spiritual path for all of us that we have to figure out within ourselves. And you can't ram these thoughts down people's throats. It just isn't going to work. And like I said, I learned the hard way, and I'm really glad to hear your experiences and hear your knowledge. It's really reassuring. But I wanted to get back to one other thing. You had told the story on one of your videos about the owl and the frozen owl. When the time around you were getting married to your husband. You want to share with the audience how that all went down and what that's about? I know I got people probably wondering, the frozen owl.
Right? Oh, this is so interesting. So why I shared that story was because I wanted to share my experience with the signs, the physical signs that we can get from the universe, our guides, our higher selves, light team, whatever you want to call it, that are a confirmation to something, or that can help you make a decision. So how it started for me is I was pregnant at that time, and I was listening to all of these videos by Gabrielle Bernstein, and she was talking about this in one of her videos, and she said, well, I chose my signs to be owls. So, and I kind of, I listened to that video, I was in awe at everything she was talking about, and I decided, all right, I got to pick a sign. But I think owl is going to be too out there, it's too hard, so I am going to pick these animals that have been coming really, really close to me lately at that time. And it's a very wild thing to me, a girl from concrete jungle city. So for me, it was super important, and I decided that to be my sign. And so, come day of the wedding, we were going to our wedding at my mother-in-law's house here in Arkansas, and we were driving from Missouri back then. And yes, of course, I see all of these animals coming up so close to the car. I was like, okay, this is perfect. What we're doing is totally supported. Beautiful. So I felt really, really connected. Like my guides gave me a lot of signs. And then we went through the ceremony of getting married, and it was really simple, and only a few people were there. And then right after the ceremony, we started talking, and the conversation somehow got to the fact that my mother-in-law, and she lives on this huge ranch here in Arkansas, that she once found this owl that was dead on her property. But she was so pretty that she didn't want to throw it away, so she froze the owl. And right now, that frozen owl that is dead and frozen is in her freezer, as we are standing there. Imagine my giggling reaction inside. Nothing is too hard for the universe. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Wow. So what was going through your head exactly?
I mean, I cannot even probably reproduce that, but the deepest level of trust into all of these signs and into the fact that there can be a dialogue between your guidance system and you. Here in the physical world, that got grounded in stone right there for me. So ever since then, I really see so many signs from them, and they're just coming to be more and more, and it evolves from an owl to a crane to different spirit animals coming to bring me messages along the way, to now, bizarrely, it's a bunch of yellow cars and that they show me, and it's getting ridiculously humorous and amazing that every time I leave the house, I am just filled with so much gratitude and so much joy. And every single time I'm in my car, it's like, thank you, life. Thank you, guys. This is beautiful. Because I feel like my life is now filled with so much magic. Yeah, that right there just lifts my vibration so, so high up.
Yeah, when I was first hearing you describe this, and then right as you started to get into the crane part, this was, I don't know, a week or two ago. I'm looking out the window, and I've got these two crows that always hang around right by my house, and I saw those two crows right as you were talking about that part, and it made me think too that, do you think as humanity gets more, oh, I don't know, more conscious and more in tune with the vibration of the planet, do you think these animals, because I see it, do you think that they're getting, feeling that they can get closer to humanity, like whether it's deer, whether it is a bird, whether it's whatever that's out in the so-called wild? Do you think that it seems like they're making that step too to get closer to us, and still a little leery, but there's not as much of the apprehension. At least that's what I kind of notice anyway. It's odd.
Yes. And I feel like the higher the vibration of the human is, the easier it is going to be to make a genuine contact with whatever the other living being is. And part of the reason why I know this, and I know this firsthand, is because when I was pregnant with a starseed of a really, really high vibration. So my vibration at that time was immensely high, and that is when I experienced a true open heart connection to so many different living beings, including plants, to where I could almost hear the answers. Like I could feel the sensation that that plant was feeling. Yeah. And also on that other uh, side note about the same issue, is I think it's already happening. I think it is starting to leak in the mass consciousness little by little, and this gorilla example that has happened just a couple of weeks ago is a perfect example. It's it's just with certain people of a higher consciousness level, they see what's going on. They see why it was shown to humanity that the true connection that's happening instantaneously is the one for of the heart and compassion.
Yeah, I totally agree. In fact, okay, when that first happened, right, I totally got out of character and went on a nasty rant about it on Facebook. And then I did a show with a gentleman by the name of Michael Shea, an Arcturian soul, and he articulated it just like that about, hey, how this really was an example for the mass consciousness. And it was just, he could even see it by the way people reacted to this particular situation. You know what I mean? It was a little bit subtly more enlightened per se than it would have been in the past. And I just think that's happening too. Like we go back and talk about the animals, right, becoming more friendly with us. I think that the plants, I swear, I'm seeing, the elementals and plants and trees, they're becoming more in tune with us. It's like, I'm feeling like I'm going to get to a point one day where I'm having, conversations with talking plants, as crazy as that sounds.
Oh no, it sounds absolutely normal to me. Absolutely normal. And totally get the point that you're saying how you're seeing elementals. Same thing is happening with me and more and more and more. Now, especially that I do these intuitive sessions outside. So whenever I tune into this really high consciousness, I open up a whole lot more than I would in my normal daily routine that is very busy. So yes, I see uh, plant life respond to my vibration, respond to questions on the vibrational level. Though I still cannot interpret it in a verbal manner, but I definitely feel it.
But you're getting there. You feel like you're totally getting there. I agree, and I think it's all part of, okay, we talk about the planet ascending into a new vibration. Do you also see, have you found too, Katya, that you see more translucent colors? I mean, everything seems to be a little bit more vibrant on some days. I mean, the other night, I got to say this, I take my dog for a walk every night around 11, 12 o'clock, and I swear, and I thought that I hadn't been drinking or anything, but it seemed like everything was clearer, right, and closer to me. It seemed like, okay, I'd look in the distance and see these houses that I always see, and it seemed like things were closing in and things were a little bit closer. Does that make sense? Have you ever heard anybody say that things dimensions seem like they're closer or further away when they're maybe in a room or, I don't know, on a walk, as they typically take?
It does. Part of it does, especially part of it about the colors and stuff. I definitely see the change in environment on certain days. On certain days it becomes dimmer. On certain days it's almost like HDR and super vibrant colors.
Yes.
And I really connect that to the energy waves that I feel whenever a certain kind of light is streaming to Earth. It is going to be really vibrant and really HDR. And then I feel like it's almost like we're getting greenhouse effect whenever they will close us in with that light and we process it. And then when things start to go a little dimmer, and then they open it back up for new light to come in, and it's getting really HDR again. That's kind of how I've been feeling it. But I started not to really concentrate on it because I remember I really saw it whenever the Wave X #1 started coming in back in September, October last year, more so.
Big time.
And I remember I walked outside, like those beginning days after September 27, 28, I walk outside and I definitely felt the difference. I saw the difference with my physical eyes. It felt like a new kind of planet, new kind of energy was around me. And I got really hopeful, like, wow, this is beautiful, but then the effects of this energy came in, right? And then the sphere beings, they kind of closed us in with it to process it. Yeah, so I started not being too hopeful about it anymore. So
Wow, amazing, just amazing. I mean, I totally, having you on here, you're helping me put puzzle pieces together and articulate in my mind exactly what's going on. But I totally get what you mean about, okay, one day, you get real hopeful, and then, and then it gets closed in. So you think that that's for our benefit? I guess what I was going to ask, I was going to go down that rabbit hole a little bit and ask, do you think that there's negative forces that are controlling that? I mean, we talk about chemtrails, which are definitely going on and blocking out the sun from us. It's probably not something you really at your face go down that rabbit hole with. It. Do you think there are still like forces, beings, whatever, that are not in our best interest, that are still holdouts that are trying to block us from our guides and block us from tuning into those frequencies, let's say like the sphere beings and things of that nature?
probably, but not in my energy field.
Right.
Because I really choose not to focus on it, and when my attention is brought to it, I switch my focus back to something else. Because I have definitely in my life experienced a power of intention and a power of alignment to a higher frequency. And when you are on the frequency high enough, whenever your perception doesn't even register the existence of something negative or something that is out there to block you, when that is not an element of your awareness, then that is not going to be something that you will attract to yourself, just because it's law of attraction 101. The vibrational resonance is not attracting it to you, because it is not a part of your energy field. So that's kind of how I live.
I think that's beautifully put, and I think it's important too to let people know it's not a matter of, okay, right, you're doing that, but it's not a matter of you totally having your head in the clouds and being totally unaware that that kind of thing exists. I mean, you're totally aware of it. It's just that your vibration doesn't attract that. You don't focus thoughts on attracting that. You're focusing on the positive love and bringing light to this planet. But at the same time, I mean, you're no fool either. I mean, you realize, of course, look where you came from. I mean,
Right.
you realize that, you realize that that shit's out there and exists. It's not that, oh, you're totally oblivious to it. And I just want to let
Of
people know
course.
that when you get to the point where Katya's at, it's not a matter of, oh, there's nothing bad going on. It's just a matter of choosing her path and intentions. You know what I mean?
Correct. Yes, I completely agree. And I also feel like, you know, certain star seeds, their mission actually has to do with dealing with those negative forces head on. So certain people are going to feel a whole lot more passionate about it than, for example, me. And it's all right. And that's within their resonance to feel that way because it's a part of their mission to be kind of on the front line, but it's not a part of mine.
Brilliant. You know what? I forgot about that. Listen, as much as you possibly can you expand on that a little? What you're talking about right now?
I mean, well, the perfect example would be some sort of blog posts that I read that are channeled messages. They really have to do with like the state of affairs, with a cabal, with the negative beings trying to block something or trying to change the line of events. And I see why there's so much value in those messages. Uh, it is somebody's it is somebody's life's work to do that, but and everybody has kind of their own place in the game, right? Everybody got their specific assignments to do these certain things. So for those people, they're going to feel a whole lot more resonance to the subject, and they're going to be in that space, and they are prepared to deal with that information in their field. And I'm sure they have a toolbox and a set of uh, spiritual protection kind of ways that they implement in their life to deal with that. I don't feel that call every time I'm reading that. It just doesn't resonate. It doesn't hook me as if it is something that is valuable for my being to take in. That's why I don't take that in.
Well, yeah, exactly. And people out there, that's what I call it. What she just said, this is what I call an open mind, right? You're able to look at that, but yet at the same time, because a lot of us will see that, right? We'll see posts like that, and you're like, ah, here we go again, more cabal ranting, blah blah blah. But you kind of have a positive attitude and really put that perspective for me that it's a matter of that may be their mission, right? I mean, there's light workers, there's light warriors, there's some of us are a little of both, a combination of both. But I'm really so you just kind of look at it and it doesn't resonate with you. But do you ever find yourself, getting that thought of, oh my God, here's another Illuminati cabal post?
Kind of, but not really. I remember I used to get that sort of attitude, but it's not like I realized that it is going on. It is actually happening. And the fact that it's getting brought up to look at, and that the channeled messages about the path of the events, like how everything is unfolding, how everything is switching from light to dark, it is important, and it's more important to certain people than to me. So when I look at it, it's like, all right, I'm happy that everything is unfolding like that. But ultimately, I live in this world that I create for myself, that I set out what kind of energy is around me. So yeah, to each his own.
Well, yeah, and I think on these individual missions, right, whether it's what you're doing, I'm doing, somebody writing about the cabal, right, I feel like also, too, on our individual missions, though, I feel like slowly, though, we're coming together in kind of a, not, just a one computerized thought form, but I feel like, okay, all this is playing a part to bring us together. Like we're out on the outer fringes doing our work, right, individually on different front lines, and I feel like it's closing in slowly, and we're, this is all part of the mission to do what we set out to do collectively. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yes and no. Honestly, I'm still kind of like myself. I'm still pretty isolated. I,
Right.
I pump through a lot of star seeds, through my intuitive sessions work, but not necessarily particularly working with someone. But yeah, I can see how it might be happening out there because of where we are collectively energetically, how actually we have kicked it into the next gear now.
Yeah, no, totally. I totally definitely agree. You mentioned your sessions. Is this something that you provide? I know that you do this in person, do you provide it online, do you do both? Are you in the future going to be provided online if you are not right now?
Actually, they are only available online. I do not do this in person. I do this over the phone, over Skype or Viber for those of us who are in other countries. And yes, I still do them free of charge. You can register free of charge until the 21st of June, and then after that, they're going to go to $110 per session. But so far, I'm so happy to be able to offer them for free, and the kind of people who are coming to me, I am just so, so thankful to meet every one of them, because so many of them are my star family, and just the fact that they allow me to be in the presence of the alignment for them is monumental.
Would you like to share maybe how people might be able to get a hold of you if they were interested in maybe talking with you about one of these sessions?
Yes, definitely. So my website is www.indigodairies.com. So if you go there and if you click in the top menu bar to intuitive sessions, you'll be able to read all about them, like how the process goes, what kind of information is normally coming through in the session, what kind of healings can come in, what can we do during the session, everything, how it works. And then from there you can click book a session, and that will take you to my GenBook account, where you pick your time, pick your day, and go through the booking process, and then we are set up.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead when the show's all processed and all that and it's posted, I'll go ahead and put your links. I'll put your links with the thumbnail of the show so people can find out that way. Katya, this has been really, really wonderful. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on, or anything that you had to say or that you felt you really needed to get out there before we wrap up this great show?
Yeah, before we wrap up, I wanted to say that part of the reasons why I started doing this work and why I started Indigo Diaries was because my ascension process was and is very tough. And in this process, I have felt a lot very, very isolated. So why I have created this resource and why I keep writing and making the videos is to be a friend for someone who is going through this, to assure a lot of people out there who are in complete fear and terror over what is going on with them and why can nobody explain this, that it's normal and it is actually a beautiful process, and that other people out there are experiencing similar things. So if you find yourself thinking what the heck and you end up watching this show, I invite you to go to indigodairies.com and read my blog posts and find me on Facebook. It is Katya Turner at indigodairies.com, and I post a lot of spiritual stuff, a lot of personal stuff, and yeah, and soon, hopefully, the whole trilogy of Indigo Diaries books will be out, which will cover my whole childhood, everything that I have learned, good and bad, everything, how I grew up.
You cut out there. Katya, can you hear me? Well, while she's trying to fix her microphone issue, I would encourage people to check her out because, I mean, just hearing about her story, I can't even imagine the situation that she grew up in post-Cold War Soviet Union there in the Ukraine. It kind of goes without saying how harsh it might have been, and then some. And, I mean, this is a woman who's really learned it the hard way through 3D and, has really came along spiritually into what I feel is the verge of greatness, if not already. So I would really, this is somebody that I would really recommend, and I don't just throw that out there, but I really, really would strongly suggest anybody who's in doubt or you know, just needs to figure things out, this is probably the person you want to check out, because she's like us, Star Family out there. I mean, she's gone through this in this time that we all have here. This isn't some new age, you know, blah, 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 whatever. This is the real deal, and she's the real deal. And I would just encourage everybody to check out our website at indigodairies.com, as well as Katya at indigodairies.com on YouTube. Now, that being said, we're having some technical issues with her. So let me get this out real quick. Okay, you can find me, Larry Locken, on Facebook. You can follow or friend me on there. Real quick, you can also find me at larrylocken.wix.com/Pleiadian Express Pro. That's Pleiadian Express Pro. And we do have a donation button there if you like our work. You know, it does take money to do these things and for equipment, upkeep. And there's a donation button. Sometimes you may have to refresh it a few times because it may say unavailable, but just refresh it a few times and you can go there. If you want to find out what I do on Facebook, okay, you can go to Pleiadian Groups and Pages page. There's one that's a group too, but that I created, but don't go there. Go to Pleiadian Groups and Pages, and you can see all the Arcturian and Pleiadian regional groups and similar groups, over 40 that I've created, as well as the almost 20 pages related to starseeds that I've created. Like to plug also real quick our 2 YouTube channels. We've got the main one here, the Mothership, the Pleiadian Express Productions, where we do our shows on. I also have a smaller one called the Pleiadian Light Grid Project, where I do my channelings. I do some more, you know, harder subject shows. I also do a lot of funny, crazy stuff on there that I've done in the past. I've done mock shows. I've done like 13 songs where I'm trying to sing, if you can imagine that. Don't take that seriously, just me messing around. But my channelings are on there. Some comedy is on there, as well as some more hardcore shows that we do. So there's those 2 variations. That's why I set up the 2 channels. We also have Radio Free Pleiades and the Arcturian Crystalline Grid Project channels that we have yet to do a lot with, but you can check those out. And again, I mentioned where you can find Katya. You can also find Katya Turner on Facebook, and she is in a lot of these Pleiadian and Arcturian groups as well. So, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead, and it looks like Katya's not going to be able to get back in the room. So with that being said, this is Rockin' Larry Locken for the entire staff of Pleiadian Express Productions, as well as the Pleiadian Light Grid Project, and my producer and twin flame, Sipooner's daughter. We'd like to wish you a big cosmic dating game kiss and a namaste. And that's a wrap.